Some months ago, Nigeria's former head of state, Ojukwu and Gowon, sat down for an interview. And of course, they asked him about the Aburi Accord. And my guy was just flip-flopping and dilly-dallying, telling us about, I had a fever, and it was not in the spirit, and other funny stories. This 91-year-old elder statesman still can't Sorosoke 55 years after. So today on Historia with Ayamatanga, we are going to be talking about the Aburi Accord, the agreement that could have prevented the Civil War. On January 4th, 1967, Nigeria's then military leadership convened on neutral ground in Aburi, Ghana, to find a way to preserve Nigeria's unity without bloodshed. That was the official line, because Nigeria had already been at war since 1966. I mean, take a look at this. This tweet by Mr. Abubakar Siddiq, Nigeria on the brink. The court judgment today will determine the fate of the country in the coming days. GEJ should not make us repeat 1966. What happened in 1966 that Abubakar Siddiq was referring to? Oh, yeah, sit down. Make I yarn you as Nigeria life takes spoil. Like most of our problems in this part of the world, it started when some idealistic young men decided that enough was enough and something needed to be done. According to Major Adewale Ademoyega, one of the ringleaders of this group of idealistic military officers, the first time they brought up the idea of changing Nigeria by force was in 1962. The January boys, as they were later called, met in Major Emmanuel Ifajuna's quarters in November 1962 and agreed that a coup d'etat was necessary to prevent Nigeria from descending into anarchy. They identified all the key figures who needed to be neutralized. Essentially, the Prime Minister, all the regional heads of government, and the leadership of the military. But what was happening in Nigeria just 2 years after independence that provoked them boys to that extent? The answer, unfortunately, was everything. Nigeria's newly minted leaders may have believed in something, but it clearly wasn't Nigeria. The corruption was brazen and the ethnic chauvinism was loud and proud. By 1962, Tafawa Balewa's government had become deeply unpopular with many Nigerians, especially with this cohort of highly educated, idealistic military officers. The final straw was what happened in the western region that culminated in Obafemi Awolowo being convicted of treason and imprisoned in Enugu. Yes, Awolowo. You see, as independence approached, Awolowo began to look beyond the western region where he was premier, and he wanted the action group to play a prominent role in national politics. So in 1959, he stepped down as premier of the western region to run for a seat in the Federal House of Assembly. Maybe he just wanted more relevance for himself, or he wanted to make sure that his Yoruba nation didn't get sidelined in the new republic, or maybe he just wanted to be prime minister. Bottom line was that the way the country was constituted, a coalition government was the most likely outcome. So Awo needed to come to terms with his old enemy Zik, or to pursue an alliance with the Fulani elite of the NPC, a group of people he detested. The elections were held in 1959, and as expected, none of the major parties had a sufficient majority to form a central government. Any two of the three parties would have formed a majority, and logically, most people would have bet their money on Awo and Zik burying their Apo from the Lagos Press War. Surprisingly, it was Zik and the NCNC that allied themselves with the NPC. Tafawa Balewa became prime minister, Zik was compensated with the title of ceremonial president, and Awolowo was left in the cold. On the surface, it looked like Zik had gotten his revenge, but his title was meaningless. He had delivered the country to Tafawa Balewa and by extension to the Sadwana of Sokoto for a few medals and no actual authority. Make sure you bookmark that fact in your brain because we'll come back to it later.